Hello, welcome to today's MSI 2024 recap over day 15, T1 G2, and then preview BLG T1 tomorrow morning. So 3-0 by T1. I predicted G2 to win this. I thought that their drafts and macro play were just so much better than T1 over this tournament. And over time, as they had these interesting picks, the Poppy, a good example, like I mentioned yesterday, and everybody on God's green earth saw it, including T1, which is important. Um, Stuff like that was the reason why G2 were having success. Now, G2 are actually pretty competitive in this series. It's a 3-0, but this series did not make me feel any better about T1 because G2 were in a winning position at least in two of these three games into the mid game. But when the hands came to be, when you actually had to team fight, T1 had the edge. Zeus was on another level. Faker raining down damage. Although, even in game two, which we'll talk about, G2 spent a lot of time in mid lane. Hell, actually, I feel like in all three games they went mid early on to try and give Caps an advantage. Theoretically, you'd like to think that Caps wouldn't need that help, and you'd probably want to help BB or the bot lane. But hey, if you have a strategy, you have a strategy. So, game one, not a lot really happening in the early game. Laning phase ended in about 11 minutes. First turret falling. Hans playing Draven in the first two games. Got an early kill in game one, which was very helpful, and boosted them to a 1.2k gold lead in bot lane. So Hans and Mickey actually were in a good spot in two of these three games, over 1k gold ahead when the first turret falls, in part due to taking it themselves. All three games, I think G2 did take the first. No, actually, that's wrong. Games 1 and 3 they did. Game 2 they did not. And they had a gold lead at this time. All six grubs had Rift Herald. They took all three Rift Heralds in this one. But T1 were taking Drakes, and that gave them an advantage. And then they won the team fight around Baron and utilized that Baron well. I think they ended with it with a 4,700 gold power play. So they outplayed him when it mattered, right? They sieged properly, and Zeus on the Camille was disgusting. And in those team fights, he's what turned it. I think the Rift Herald fight might be the one where it really went to the side of T1, and then they started going from there. So G2 were in a nice spot, but T1 out team fought them. Game 2, laning phase ended about 16 minutes. G2 went mid lane a few times. Really trying to get Faker behind on the Azir. I believe he at some point in the late game he had 7 deaths. Was like 6, 7, and 2. Like, it was a very weird KDA for Faker. And they were really trying to help Caps out. However, Zeus on the K'Sante had pinpoint accuracy in these team fights to be able to pick off the right players to win team fights. Owner on the Poppy, a difference maker. Another thing to keep in mind, Yike playing Kha'Zix in game 1, not a great pick. Definitely puzzling picks out of Yike at this tournament. But, like I say all the time, puzzling picks help a team because you don't expect it. And, you may say, yeah, but that champ isn't as good. And it's like, okay, yeah, but if I expect you to do that, then I'm already prepared for it. And if I'm already prepared for it, I'm not worried about it, theoretically. So that's a thing. In terms of grubs, G2 took 4, T1 took 2. At about 16 minutes, the biggest diffy was in top lane. BB up 600 gold, but Zeus up 22 CS. So how about that, right? Interesting stat line there. That Zeus was up all this CS, but BB actually had gotten a couple kills and was in a solid position. Yike had 400 gold, 16 CS over Owner, but wasn't able to do anything with it. And T1 took 1 Baron. It was about 1,300 gold. Not a super powerful Baron power play, but they were able to win the game off of a final team fight. And they aced them and just took the Nexus. Actually, this game was the game where they almost ended. Hans, with a Quadra on Draven, stopped the end, exposed Nexus. And, yes, because it was a fight around second Baron. T1 won it. They tried to end. They couldn't end. Hans gets a Quadra. And then Faker TP's in and ends the Nexus as they're trying to kill him. So, hype ending, but the game was close for quite a while. It went 35 minutes almost. Game 3 went beyond that. T1 were not like this 3-0, like G2's 3-0s against PSG and shoot, Top Esports were more one-sided than this. Like G2 were very competitive. And in game 3 they had like a 5k gold lead at like 20 minutes. And yeah, early game comp and all that, but like if T1 spots these leads to BLG tomorrow, they're gonna lose. As far as I'm concerned, they will be like that will be over. Only because if you spot a team with super good players like that are gonna utilize their leads and actually punish you for them, that's the thing. Like Caps theoretically should be able to. In game 3, he had a 600 gold lead at about 11 minutes, 16 CS ahead. Hansama Mickey 1.2k. Not super active. 3 plays in the first 10, 11 minutes, but keep in mind it was a short laning phase. T1, 5 grubs, so they did take the bulk of the grubs in this one, but still, G2 should take the Rift Herald. They lost the team fight around Rift Herald, but they did take it. But as the game went along, Zeus on the Rumble became stronger and stronger. Faker on the Talia becoming stronger and stronger. And let's not forget about Guma in this one. Guma played well on the Callista and the Varus in this series. Really executing team fights quite well, keeping his KDA in a solid spot. He ended up leading the team in KDA. So that is a thing. They had 2 Barons, so this game took a little longer. Elder was up, so it's kind of interesting. G2 lost this with Soul. Second Baron fight, T1 did ace. Well, no, actually, they won the team fight 4-0, I think. And BB was still alive, so BB went and took the Drake and got out of there right before T1 were able to kill him. So they did have Chemtech Soul, but by that point, T1 were so far ahead. I mean, they were able to end with that Baron and siege properly. But the game was close for a very long time after G2 had a massive lead. I mean, that just didn't make any sense at all. G2 threw this game, in my opinion. When you have a lead that massive and, you know, you have all these people saying that you're such a great team, you got to close that one out. Got to close that one out. That's the ugly one out of these 3, in my opinion. Totals. T1 executing about 6 plays, G2 9. Yike more active than Owner, but it didn't make a difference. Even though they went after Faker as much as they did, Faker still had quite a bit of DPM. Caps might have had the most DPM in this series, however. Grubs, Rift Herald. So G2 took all 3 Heralds, 11-7 in Grubs, 7-6 in Drake. So like I said, they were on top of objectives. They were ahead in all the objectives, but still, when the late game team fights occurred, they were on the losing side of them. They were hands stiffed, in my opinion. Power plays, T1 averaged just under 3,200 gold a power play. Now, for preview for tomorrow. When these 2 teams played, BLG T1 just a few days ago, BLG won 3-1. In that matchup, Bin on average 150 gold lead. Zeus 5 CS lead. Owner just 25 gold, might as well be nothing. Owner and Shun essentially even. And Hell, Bin and Zeus essentially even. Now, Knight had a bit of a diffy. He was ahead 550 gold on average over Faker across 4 games, only 3 CS. But, you know, maybe get something for 600 gold. That's a slightly decent item at the end of laning phase. Hell, between the, you know, in this one, I mean, 11 to 16 minutes, but normally in that 14 to 15 minute range. Elganon ahead of Guma Carria, about 275 gold, 4 CS. Keep in mind there were a lot of Senna games in that series. Picks and bans, we went over this for these guys before, and we've talked about it quite a bit, but let's go over it if you haven't watched my previous video. So in top lane, there are 3 bans to look at. TF and Rumble, both banned by BLG often because they played into T1, and T1 have to face those bans, right? So a heavily banned champion against them. T1 also banned a lot of Zac because they played a lot of G2. Jungle, we have 3 bans. So Vi and Sejuani, both banned a lot by T1, and ironically, BLG can't play them very often. So that's a thing. J4, also a common ban against Shun. So Shun eating 3 of the top 6 most common bans against BLG, which is in part why I almost don't want to say that it's Shun Like, Shun got gapped by Canyon, don't get me wrong, but Shun is also eating more of the bans than anybody else on the team. So somebody else has to step up with their champion usage. In mid lane, definitely the most common area for champions in this you know ban and this draft portion of the preview. So Tristana, Azir, and Orianna. Tristana often banned by T1. Azir often banned by BLG, and T1 face a lot of Azir bans as a result. T1 also face a lot of Orianna bans to keep in mind. BLG ban Asol a lot. They also face Ari and Talia bans. So 6 mid laners on here facing bans. AD carry, Lucian, Senna. Senna often banned by BLG. T1 ends up not being able to play it. And then T1 also bans Lucian quite a bit. Support, Nautilus and Ashe. Nautilus banned a lot by both teams. Both teams not a big fan of playing against Nautilus. So it's either pick or ban, I guess, for them. And then Ashe, both teams face a lot of Ashe bans and don't ban it themselves. They like playing it, but teams often take it away. So will that be a champion that's up? It's possible. But like I said, most common ban on here is mid. There are 6 champions that these teams are seeing in the ban phase quite a bit in draft. But most importantly, Shun is really getting picked on in draft, which in part makes me kind of, consider, maybe it's not necessarily all his doing why they're struggling if other players are having an opportunity to play champions that they prefer. So this series of close, of course, is an elite one. But if T1 play the way they have pretty much this whole entire tournament, they will lose. Some people are going to say, yeah, but what about that? Faker had really great shot calling in this moment in this series around Baron or this, that, and the third. It's like, yeah, but if you spot these gold leads to BLG, I don't think T1 are going to out-team fight BLG at that point. BLG are going to win. So that's a whole deal here. So thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord. Become a YouTube supporter. And hope to see you again tomorrow.